Welcome to the IEEE Systems Man and Cybernetics podcast. I'm your host, Rodney Roberts, and I'm one of the officers of the IEEE Systems Man and Cybernetics Society, and I serve as the Vice President for Systems Science and Engineering. The topic of today's podcast is the IEEE transactions on human-machine systems. Our guest is Professor David Kaber, the Editor-in-Chief of the Transactions. Professor Kaber is a distinguished professor in the Edward P. Fitts Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering at North Carolina State University. Professor Kaber, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role as Editor-in-Chief?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm working at North Carolina State right now. I've been teaching in the human factors and ergonomics area for about 20 years. I'm currently serving as the EIC for THMS. We're focused on delivery of high-quality research studies to the human-machine systems community. And, our overall objective is to effectively advance engineering theory and practice so that automation can ultimately meet human expectations. So I think this is a very important role, and I'm happy to be working for the journal.
Can you tell us the origin of the journal within IEEE and SMC?
Yes. So THMS, the current transactions, has basically three origins. So one is the transactions on man-machine systems from back in 1968. A second origin is the transactions on systems, man, and cybernetics Part A, which was the systems and humans transaction. And the third one is the transactions on systems, man, and cybernetics Part C, which was applications and reviews. So both, I think, as you know, Rodney, both Part A and Part C were folded into the transactions on human-machine systems, which now has a sharper focus than those publications did.
So what is the current focus of the journal?
So we're focused on submissions that address design and engineering of complex interactive human-machine systems, in particular those that demand real-time control. And the journal has expectation that contributions that any contribution is novel from a theoretical or a practice perspective, that the developments support human information processing and decision-making in system operation. And we typically require that there's some form of validation of any technological contribution through a lab or a field experiment.
So what's unique about the transactions compared to your top competitors?
Well, in my opinion, there's no other journal that takes a rigorous engineering approach to measuring and modeling human systems performance like THMS does. The studies that we publish, they provide methodological bases for engineering interventions that can promote safety and performance. In addition to that, I think another unique aspect of THMS is that the content of the majority of studies that we publish represents a full spectrum engineering effort, from design to prototype to testing and performance model formulation. You don't find this in many other journals. I would also say that I think that the rigor of the analyses that are published in the journal is beyond that of most other publications. So the analytical and experimental methods that are used for describing human and system behavior are very advanced relative to other publications, some other publications in the human factors area that largely focus on statistical models. So I think that these are some of the key unique aspects of the publication.
What are some examples of recent published paper topics?
So we had an issue come out in August, and it included several papers that were focused on human physical activity monitoring and tracking, and you might have seen that. And those studies provide a basis for recognition and classification of human behavior. Some of the applications were for workplace risk exposure analysis, for athlete motion assessment and training, for assessing patient safety and progress during at-home convalescence. So some interesting topics there. Over the past two issues, so including August and October, we published several papers on robotic assistance systems for human movement, physical therapy, as well as mobile robots for guiding humans in escaping from emergency situations in public spaces. And then we've also had a few technical correspondence, interesting ones that have come out on multimodal gaze-controlled keyboard development. We had two correspondents in the October issue that were focused on advancing defibrillator design and using end user training with those systems. So diverse, but very interesting topics in the HMS area.
Well, what are some of the fundamental requirements for consideration of manuscripts by the journal?
Well, so in my view, THMS is one of the highest quality human systems engineering publications that there is, and I think the journal has a reputation for being a challenging forum in which to publish. However, at the same time, I think that we deliver studies that provide key methodological advances. So, with that in mind, the screening of submissions is rigorous. We require that all studies identify an actual target human-machine system for measurement or method development. There has to be clear research question formulation, motivated by prior work. We also have expectation of hypothesis-driven experimentation. We also require that any statistical analyses go beyond descriptive models, that there's some information on significance and reliability of the technology that's being assessed. And furthermore, as you know, with the transactions, we have structured format for algorithm delivery to promote comprehension and utility for the engineering community. So I think these are some considerations that we make of submissions.
Can you tell me about the review process, how it works, and what are the different stages of review?
Sure. So I initially screen the papers for fit with the scope of the journal, and of course I'm also concerned with the rigor of the analyses that are presented. Then a submission would go to one of the AEs. So we have about 60 associate editors serving on the board right now, and that's going to depend on the topic of the submission as well as the expertise of the AE. The AEs handle the reviewer assignments, and so the society requires that all submissions receive 3 reviews. And the AEs ultimately make recommendation based on the reviewer comments. So they'll provide me with a recommendation as to how they think the manuscript should be handled. Typically, if a reviewer identifies novelty concerns or that there's some methodological issues or they ask for additional experiments, I think that the likelihood of success is limited in those cases. Related to that, one of the standing policies that we have is that we don't extend decisions of major revision if there's additional experimentation that's required. So any revision is limited to a 30-day time frame, and that's usually not enough for an author to do another study. So then, I'll render the decision based on the recommendation of the AE, and right now we have a huge volume of recommendations that are passing through the journal, and our current time frame for publication, from submission to publication, is about 10.6 months, and that's pretty much in line with the history of the journal. So those are the general steps that we have in the process.
Do you have some examples of critical issues that might result in a rejection?
So THMS is focused on studies that actually address human-in-the-loop systems. So we don't publish research that's limited to strictly cybernetic technology development. Those efforts are addressed by the Cybernetics Journal through the society. So there needs to be some actual human-machine system application that's identified, and that the limitations of the application are made clear as a basis for whatever the technological development is, and then Of course, there needs to be some validation component, and the evaluation needs to have scientific rigor. Otherwise, if those things are absent, then those would typically be issues that could lead to rejection.
And could you elaborate a little bit more on the typical time frame of the decision process?
Yeah, sure. So right now we are, in terms of turnaround time for first decisions, the society has expectation that we're going to do that within 8 to 10 weeks. That's the requirement that they've identified. The current time to first decision for 2016 is about 68 days. So it usually takes me a week to make the assignment to an AE, and then the AEs are averaging about 12 days right now for reviewer assignment. They typically make recommendations in 1 to 2 weeks. So that means that the reviews usually take about 3 to 4 weeks. So that's that's an accounting for the 68 days number that I mentioned.
And what's the average time to publication for the manuscripts ultimately accepted?
Yeah, so right now we're at 10.6 months. So I've looked at the statistics recently, and that's in line with the journal history. But we want to get that time down to approximately 9 months, if possible. And I think that the IEEE Publications Review Committee wants to see that. But of course, to achieve that type of change, we're gonna need to have more editorial resources, including additional AEs, and then we're going to be using senior AEs for screening submissions in the future.
So what's the overall acceptance rate for the journal, and about how many publications do you have per year?
So our acceptance rate is currently 18.6%. So that rate is also in line with the journal's history, it typically fluctuates between 18 and 21%. In general, I think an acceptance rate of 20% reflects the critical nature of the board to ensure novelty and validity of contributions, and I'm quite comfortable with that rate. This past year, we published 71 items, and I expect that number to be higher for 2016 and 2017, etc., because we've instituted rigid requirements for regular paper and technical correspondence length. So we should be producing 10 regular papers per issue, 4 correspondence per issue, so that would put us at 84 items, in a standard year. That's not as high as some of our competitors, but our journal, our impact factor for the journal remains higher than all but one of our top competitors, and so I think we're doing quite well.
Are there any upcoming special issues that potential authors should be aware of?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to be publishing the Golden Jubilee anniversary issue in 2018. So as I mentioned earlier, the Transactions on Human-Machine Systems finds one of its origins in the Transactions on Man-Machine Systems from back in 1968. So in 2018, IEEE will have been in the business of publishing human-machine system studies for 50 years. So with that issue, we're going to be we want to present some major review papers, and we're looking for contributions for leading researchers in the human-machine systems area. The topics that we've laid out include human-computer coordination, human control of dynamic systems, human monitoring of supervisory control systems, human decision-making with complex automated systems, and then models of human automation interaction. So I think we've got a number of exciting topics there, and we're hopeful that the integration of knowledge in those areas through review papers will be a substantive contribution to the foundation of HMS science. So yeah, we're really excited about that issue.
Yeah, that is very exciting. Could you tell me a little bit about the future of the journal in terms of operation and direction?
Well, for operation, as I mentioned, we're going to continue to expand the editorial board, and we're going to focus on persons with expertise in human performance modeling and human systems engineering. We're going to be selecting senior associate editors for screening papers and promoting journal efficiency. And in general, we're going to be decreasing the time to publication. So I think that that should make the journal more attractive for authors. Right now, we have a limited backlog. We only have about 30 papers in backlog right now, and we are going to work to maintain that or to reduce it. And so I think that that makes THMS a very attractive option right now for authors as compared to some other journals, particularly those in the human factors area that have large paper backlogs, and you have delayed publication times there. On the direction for the journal, I think that we want to see more contributions from major figures and rising stars in the field to guide the future of human-machine system research. I think that that it's important that we are delivering content that advances theory and methodology that can serve to further explain variability that occurs in human-machine systems beyond the existing engineering approaches that we have. So, my main concern is that the publications that we deliver provide for greater understanding and accounting for complex system states, and that support engineers in designing for human automation interaction. So that is the basic direction that we've got for the future.
Sounds exciting. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, we want to encourage folks to make submissions to the journal. So again, I think that the THMS is one of the highest quality forums in its particular area, and that we're delivering top scientific studies through the journal, and we would like to see folks submit their best work to the publication, and to help us make a contribution to what I think is a very, very important area of research, human-machine system interaction. With the advent of new autonomous systems in different domains, I think that research in this area is becoming even more critical. So yeah, we want to see more submissions in the future.
Oh, thank you once again for telling us about the IEEE transactions on human-machine systems. Look forward to many years of its continued success.
Yeah, thank you.
Lastly, I'd like to thank our listeners for their interest in the transactions, and please visit the SMC website for more information. Thank you.